Hi everyone and welcome back to Each One Teach One. Now I just love that song because it actually encourages us. It's reminding us of the roles that we are supposed to be playing in accordance to God's will. It actually says if you are called to do something by God, just do it with all of your heart. For those who are called to be preachers, for those who are called to be musicians, those who are called to give, do it with all of your heart. That's what the song in Swahili the artist is actually trying to explain to us and to encourage us. Now, my name is Regina, the blessed, the favored, and the unstoppable. Remember, this week I'm doing videos, or actually dealing with the topic of sowing and reaping. And yesterday I spoke to the sower out there, and when I actually did the introduction, I reminded us that sowing in this case, in this week, as I share the topic on sowing and reaping, is not necessarily in terms of, in terms of farming. I'm talking about sowing in terms of what God has created you to do, in accordance to God's purpose and mission for you and for your life. In whatever field that you feel that you strongly feel you have been called or created for. That is the sowing that I'm actually talking about. Those seeds of greatness that God has placed in you or within you. Could be your talents, your potential, your gifts. When you are there busy trying to put them into to good use, or to actually utilize it in the right way, that is the sowing that I'm talking about. Now remember, we shared on the parable of the sower, and I mentioned that it's very little is told about the sower. So that's why when I read that verse, I have done it before, but when I read it this time round, I asked God to define for me who is this sower, because little is actually mentioned about the sower, even in the book of Matthew, where we are told about the parable of the sower. So you and I, in some way, we are sowers out there. Not necessarily in the same field, but in the field that each one of us has been called to sow. We are sowers. As long as you're making efforts to become that which God created you to be, and utilizing the potential that God has placed within you, and the gifts and the talents, then it means that you, in some way, you are also a sower. Though not a farmer, not into farming, but you are sowing in terms of the greatness that God wants you to reach, the destiny that I'm always here to remind you about. Now, even as I begin today, I'm welcoming all of you out there to keep on encouraging and inviting others to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Each One Teach One, and also to like my Facebook page, Each One Teach One, so that God will continue encouraging us and motivating us, shaping us and molding us through Each One Teach One to become better versions of ourselves, and to be reminded, constantly reminded, that God has a great destiny for each one of us. Now, the pain of sowing. Now, remember, I'm mentioning about sowing when we are discussing this topic today. Remember, it's not about farming. It's about sowing in terms of your calling, God's purpose for you, the efforts you are making to reach your destiny, to reach God's great destiny for you. That is the sowing that I'm actually talking about. Now, I can tell you for sure that sowing is not easy. Most of us prefer reaping than sowing, because with sowing comes a lot of responsibilities, comes with a lot of challenges here and there. Some are expected, some are not even expected. They just show up, they just come up in your process of sowing, sowing those seeds of greatness that you are sowing in whatever field that you feel God has actually called you to sow into. So in short, sowing is not as easy as we might want it to be. I personally also, there are times I wish my sowing, the season of sowing into becoming that which God created me to be would be easier, but unfortunately that is not the case. So this message today is to people. I wish to reach out to people out there who are sowing, that is planting seeds of greatness in their own lives, or even in the lives of those who are around them, and they strongly feel that is the field that God has called them to actually sow in. And also, secondly, to those people making efforts to do and to be who God has created them to be. Could be you are sowing in your career, you are also sowing in your personal relationships. Could be you are sowing in terms of uniting your family, in your marriage, in the lives of your children. Whatever it is that you feel God has called you to sow into, the field that God has called you to sow into, this message is for you out there. Now, there's a lot of pain when it comes to sowing in most cases. And I wanted to ask to think of it, of sowing, and just keep on thinking and wondering to myself, okay, why is it so painful when it comes to sowing? Why is sowing so painful even in our lives, our day-to-day lives, even as we continue running after God's great destiny for us? Now, remember that when it comes to us sowing, nobody really wants to associate with the struggles of sowing that actually sowing comes with, because most people want the end product. They want just the success. They want the end product of the sowing, not the season of sowing. They want you to reach very fast. Even you yourself, at times, you just want to reach that success, whereby you say now the sowing season is over and now it's reaping or harvest time. So number one reason why sowing is so painful, even in my own life, my own personal life, even as I continue running after God's great destiny for me, is because sometimes I don't want to be associated with the pain that actually comes with the struggles. Now I've grown to see my dad be so much into farming. And I remember even growing up during my childhood, he was very active in terms of farming. Now, this is just an example. And even to date, at times, most of the times whenever we catch up, he's still into farming. And I could remember even back then, when the season was the weather was not very conducive, the weather was not so good, he would still wake up. When it's time to go sow, when it's time to go farm, he would wake up. Though he might not be the one who is actually doing the manual work, he would be there with the workers, supervising them, whether it's raining. Anavaa tu kakofia na gumboots, sometimes even no gumboots, just the two funny shoes za kuenda kwa shamba, and he just goes to join them. Whether it's raining or not, he was into sowing. And I used to wonder, why does he have to do this? But then come reaping time, he was one of the best farmers in the area, and he still is. So he never minded about the struggle, the rain. It's rainy. It's a rainy day. I'm not going to sow. I'm not going to farm. He was very busy doing that which he knows is a passion in his life, and that is farming, sowing, even when the weather it was not actually conducive. So with sowing, that's what I'm actually trying to explain to us, kings and queens out there, that with sowing comes a lot of struggles. And one of the reasons why it's so painful to sow is because of these struggles. Nobody wants to hold on. Everybody wants the end product of sowing and not the season itself. Now, mostly, sowing is a season of loneliness, and you find yourself alone in it. And even though some may offer help, it's only short-lived. Then again, you're back to it on your own. When you are there very busy trying to sow, to sow those seeds of greatness in your life and even in the lives of those who are around you, or sow in whatever area God has called you to sow into. Could be into preaching, could be in your career, could be in your studies. That season of sowing is not so easy, and it's actually associated with loneliness, because most people don't really want, as I mentioned, most people just want you to reach that successful level, and then they can join in. But when you are there sowing seeds of greatness, you are there making efforts to become who God wants you to be. Nobody really, not so many people will be around you, and even you at times you'll feel lonely. You might involve people even in this process of sowing. They help you a little bit, but because we are all human beings, itafika a point someone will feel like, no, this is too much now. So sowing, that is the second reason that I actually think of why sowing is so painful. There is it's that season, I call it that season of loneliness most of the times. Now, the other reason is because it requires a lot of patience. I can tell you that if even, for example, farmers out there who sow, if they are not patient enough, they'll give up season after season, because sowing, even in your own personal life, in your own relationships, in the field that God has called you to sow into, it requires a lot of patience, because the results will not come instantly. Like you've just sowed, you put some effort into something, and then you see the result tomorrow or the next minute. No, it takes time. When you sow, for example, into your personal development, career, relationships, etc., you don't get results right there and then. It needs a lot of waiting, and sometimes even a prolonged kind of waiting. So you wait until waiting now becomes, it becomes painful now. It's too much. You cannot hold. You cannot really wait to get into that season where you'll be harvesting and reaping what you have actually sowed. Now, there are times that those assisting you will run out of patience also and feel it's taking too long. The reaping season is taking too long to come. And it's taking too long to get the expected successful results. So they're actually going to leave you and to quit, even when it comes to helping you in this season of sowing. So to the sower out there, expect all these things. Because sowing, even as I share with us, sowing is not as easy as we think. Because point number 3, it requires a lot of patience. The question is that, do you have enough patience to keep on sowing in that field that God has called you to sow? That is a question you should be asking yourself. Now, the other point is that at times, sowing includes or involves a lot of failures. You'll try today and tomorrow, and again, sometimes it's not even successful. The same case happens even with the farmers out there on the physical, those who are into farming. And remember, today I'm not discussing about sowing in terms of farming. I'm just using farming as an example to make you understand the pain of sowing out there. So there are times that it fails. There are times I've seen my dad be so, so put a lot of effort even in terms of farming. But then when it comes to reaping season, the expectation, the kind of success that he actually expected does not happen. Maybe he reaps less than what he expected, maybe because of different circumstances and issues affecting the whole process. Maybe it could be the season was not favorable, or seasons have actually changed and the weather conditions. So at times, sowing, even in your own area, God-given, designated area or field of sowing, there will be failures up and down, over and over again. And even after so much effort, the efforts that you have actually put in that sowing season, sometimes feel like it's unfair. You're not getting the results that you are actually expected to get. Now, it's if not fully committed, you might quit to avoid the frustration. Most people have actually quit in terms of sowing in their lives, in terms of the greatness that, putting more efforts in terms of running after God's great destiny for them, because of this fact that there is a lot of failures. There are times that you feel like you have failed, you did your best, but the results are not as pleasing as you expected it to be. And so if you're not fully committed into your sowing in the field that God has created you to sow in, you can be sure that you are going to, the frustrations will be too much until to a point that you're actually going to quit. Now, those are a few reasons that I thought of, even as I continue myself sowing in different areas that God has created me to actually sow into. And those are some of the reasons that I have felt myself going through a lot of pain in terms of sowing. Now, this is a message, even as I come to a close, I have a message to those people who are sowing out there, those people that are actually sowing in their God-designated areas and fields in their lives. I want you to remember to be very wise. It's very important for us to be wise. As I mentioned, I'm also sowing in different areas in my life, and I can tell you it's not a sweet season. But God expects us to be wise, to notice those who actually are consistent, helping us in our sowing season. May we learn not to let them go, even after we have succeeded, even after this painful season of sowing. There are people that God will send into your life, and they will be there consistently helping you in terms of your sowing, in terms of you becoming that which God created you to be. May you be wise, be very wise to take note or to notice these kind of people, because I call them, heaven-sent kind of angels, to come and assist you in terms of your sowing, because not so many people, as I mentioned, not so many people will be with you to the end in this season of sowing. So take note of those people that are actually willing to stick with you through your sowing season. That even after the reaping season, you're still going to stick with them. Hold them dear in your heart. Treasure them. Point number 2 that I want us to remember, even as we continue sowing in the field that God has created us to sow into, is do not be afraid of the loneliness that comes with sowing in your field. As a matter of fact, we are supposed to be expecting it, because at some point it's bound to happen. Now, loneliness in terms of sowing is actually evident in most cases. It's obvious. Sometimes there are times people will walk out of your life, even as you continue sowing to become that which God created wants you to be, and to reach that great destiny that He has for you. Now, do not be afraid of the loneliness that actually the sowing season brings or comes with, because there is a reason. Not everybody is for your sowing season. Not everybody is meant to stick with you all through. So do not be afraid of it. Ask God for His Spirit to actually encourage you and to comfort you all through this season. Now, number 3, please do not hold grudges with those who choose not to be part of your sowing season from the word go. For example, from the word go, or even along the sowing, the process of sowing. There are people that will be so excited when it comes to you, sharing with them that I'm putting more efforts on this, I want to achieve this, and I want to start doing this and this, and they'll be like, yeah, I'll be there for you. But then along the process, as you continue sowing in that field that God has created you to sow in, they give up and they walk out of you. Or even some will be like the very first moment, the very first time that you share with them of your plans and desires to reach in the level that you expect to reach in accordance to God's will for you and purpose for your life, they will be like, no. And some will be not even telling you verbally, but they'll just wanakulenga too. Do not hold grudges with this kind of people, because not everybody will be for your sowing season. Not everybody is meant to be with you all along, even as you continue sowing to become that which God created you to be. Now, number 4 is to upgrade. Let us try to upgrade our patience level, because without patience, you are not going to go through this season of sowing successfully. And you might end up giving up because of all the challenges that comes and the struggles that comes with it. Remember that it will take you far. The patience, when you upgrade that level of patience in your life in terms of sowing in the field that God has created you to sow in your life, it will take you far, and at the end of it all, you will see the end results of your great efforts. God is going to reward you, your great efforts. That's why I played that song from the beginning, and even I did yesterday. There's a part that actually encourages us that usichoke safarini. God will come and reward you. Don't get tired of sowing in the field that you confidently know that God has created you for, to sow in. Because at the end of it all, you'll be rewarded. And the last point that I want us to remember, even as we ourselves are sowers in different ways, is actually to expect failures. Remember to expect failures at times, and remember to involve God to show you, so that He's actually going to show us how to overcome these failures, because these failures are the ones that actually motivate us to continue running after God's great destiny for us, to continue sowing even in the fields that God has created us to sow in, kings and queens out there. Now, as I come to a close, I want us to remember that in whichever area, this message was for the sower out there, to remind you that all those who are going through pain in terms of sowing, could be that you're a preacher, you've been expecting to have more followers in your church. Could be you're there studying, and maybe you're studying and there are challenges here and there. Sometimes you don't have school fees, and you're sowing into this field that God has, feel that this is the season God has chosen for me to sow in this and this area. Please remember that in whichever area you are sowing in, as long as it is in line with God's purpose for you, ask for His strength to actually stick to it. Keep sowing, sow. Keep sowing, brothers and sisters and kings and queens out there. And remember that a great reward is awaiting you ahead. And it will be successful. Now, I want to close with one verse, and that is from Revelation chapter 22 and verse 12. And this is what it says, and I quote, "Listen, says Jesus, I'm coming soon, and I will bring my rewards with me to give to each one according to what he has done." This is just an encouragement. Even as I come to a close, remember that whatever it is that God has called you to sow into, whichever area, whichever field in your life right now, if you are in the sowing season, even as I discuss come to a close on this discussion on the pain of sowing, remember that Jesus Christ will come to reward you. It's not necessarily about preaching. It's not necessarily about, all the word of God. Could be in different areas of your life. Keep sowing, brothers and sisters out there. And remember that having hope, remember to have that hope and trust that God will come and reward you. You're sowing all the efforts that you're actually putting into that sowing season. You'll be rewarded for it accordingly. Now, I welcome you for my next video. Let's wait and see what God has for us. Now, I'm wishing you a lovely time wherever you are. Remember that our good God loves us. He will never ever leave us. He will never forsake you or I. Once you know that and strongly believe it in your heart, please keep running after God's great destiny for you.